Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. This is Toni Moore of Boss Up Radio. Just wanted to come in and have a conversation with you. Not too short, not too long, but just enough to remind you that you have every single thing you need to make your life more beautiful. So today I was in my hello, Charlene. I was in my what I call my lying in green pastures moment when I was wanting to sleep with my eyes closed, but then I got my spiritual downloads, right? And I was thinking, it was just, I didn't go to bed like this. I went to bed thinking about the book that I'm writing, Stop Being a Doormat and Start Being a Boss. I'm not sure if you start pre ordering it, but definitely check that out. And then I was like, okay, I'm not going to think about the book today. I was working on it all day yesterday. And then I was thinking about the Start Right, Get Right Academy and the incubator program and the things that I wanted to do in that, right? And I was like, no, I don't want to have that conversation. I don't want to have that conversation right now in my head. I just wanted to lay down. And so I said, well, let's talk about Labor Day, right? And then something said, but what if you don't beget, then you won't get. If you don't beget, and in the Bible, I'm a Bible girl. I was always thinking about such and such begot this and such begot that. And you ever look at that and they talk about the begots and the begets, especially in Genesis and then, in Chronicles, and then they talk about, just the whole genealogy of it all, the whole genealogy of it all. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot of information with regards to it. And then I started going into the scripture references, right? And I was like, well, I see beget a lot in the Bible, and essentially, and I probably might change the title, because essentially the download was you have to give birth to your dreams. You have to give birth to your visions. You have to give birth. You got to give birth to something so that you can be the change that God created you to be. Right. And I'm like, wow. So, when we think about, we celebrate Labor Day, which is essentially about the American workers and workers all across the world who work every day on someone else's dream. Hello, somebody, because I'm a parallelpreneur. So I work part time and then I have my own experience, my own boutique law firm where I feel like I'm always working full time for my clients. But this is what Labor Day is all about. You get a day off out of all of the days that you worked, so in celebration of all you do working on someone else's dream. Even if you're grumbling, even if you're complaining, but you're working on it, and sometimes we're not mumbling and complaining, and I totally like the mission of what I do at my job, which is helping people understand the rules and the regulations of the retirement benefit plan, and helping them understand that, one, don't nobody care about them. They have to take responsibility of their legacy and the responsibility of their retirement planning, or they will be getting some sickness and disease, right? So, hey, Nicole, I see you. Hey, Charles, I see you. Hey, Vanessa, I see you. Hey, Charlene, thank you for joining. Hey, Aussie, I see you. So I'm like, well, sometimes we be getting a lot of stuff. We be getting bills, and we be getting, pain and sorrow, and we be getting trials and tribulation, and we be getting the sorrow of tomorrow. We don't even want to go to the next day. Some of us don't even want to open up our eyes. Some of us are like, you just don't understand. I'm surrounded by pain and darkness and negativity. But this is what I also know, is that when that whole beginning and begotten, it's a natural thing. It's a natural about who gave birth to it, but it's also a spiritual thing. I remember my mom, she's a very spiritual woman. Her spirituality wasn't nothing like my spirituality, but thank God that I found a way to see what it was all about for me, what it was all about for me. And, because we both will walk through in spirituality gateways of religion. I was talking to my brother-in-law recently about just how we walked into it, and I was just like, nah, I'm not even catching this feeling. I'm just going to walk away. I don't like her religiosity. I don't like her Christianity. I don't like her God. He's a bullying God. And so I was like, nah, this is not what I want. So I walked away. But how many of y'all know that you can't walk away from who you are? You can't walk away. Now, you may have learned some things, and you may say, nah, I don't like this. I don't like what she got. I don't like what he got. But then when you walk alone and you walk by yourself and you don't know what you're dealing with, the spirituality of just having to know about just living in the human experience, but also have a spiritual mindset and also have a soulful mindset, then you understand and appreciate that you're getting something. You be getting the positivity or the negativity. You be getting false evidence appearing real. You be getting like the faith blessings and lessons. You be getting all of that stuff. So I was looking at the whole reference with regards to the begetting. And then I was like, well, what about the spiritual reference? Because when I used to go to Sunday school, I don't do that anymore. But when I used to go, I'd be like, this is all good that y'all know these scriptures at rote about what had happened was. But how are you applying it to your life? What are you giving birth to now that you know better? Right? Now that you know better, are you doing better? Now that you know better, are you birthing out the change with the change that is already inside of you? Because what I know for sure is that you beget what you be getting what other people got if you don't change your mindset. You be getting what other people got if you continually conform to the things of this world. You be getting what other people got if you okay with lying in the sea of sameness. If you're okay with just being mediocre. And you're like, Tony, I'm not mediocre. I'm not mediocre. But if you are like most people, mediocrity, that 80% rule, most people are going to be watching TV and reality TV and amused by life. And when you're amused, you're not thinking. When you're amused, you're not seeking. When you're amused, you're not knowing. You turned your brain down. So when you turn your brain down, you be getting some message, some frequency that someone else put inside of you. So I want to know today, what do you be getting? What do you be getting? And it's a spiritual birth. It's a birthing that you have to meditate on these things. Like, what am I giving birth to right now? Am I giving birth to my vision? I remember, am I giving birth to a mission? Am I giving birth to dreams? Because all I know is that it says without a vision, we die. So without a vision. So if we need to have a vision, we have to write the vision. We have to know the vision so we don't forget it. But guess what, y'all? Guess what? We got to give birth to the vision. You got to give birth to your vision. You have to give birth to your vision. You have to give birth to your vision, because if you don't birth your vision, if you don't birth your vision, then what else is it? See, this is what I know is that vision, it's giving birth to a vision. And you know what? The same way that when you have to give birth to a child, or I was thinking actually this morning about, there was this YouTube woman, and she was, oh Lord, was given natural birth. She always wanted to experience natural birth. She always wanted to experience natural birth. And so she was out in La La Land with a enclave of her natural born people, and she wanted to give birth, but eventually she couldn't. She realized she couldn't do it by herself. She realized that she couldn't do it by herself. So at the end of the day, she needed some help, because it was too hard for her. When she was pressing down and she had no labor pains, it was too hard. Something inside of her was stretching her, and it was too hard. So she had to call out for someone. See, a lot of us try to give birth to a business by ourselves. We try to give birth to a business. Well, I went on LegalZoom, but guess what? You know how many people I get a chance to help out because they went on LegalZoom, and LegalZoom only gave them the form. And you all know that, having a baby in a form, you give birth to your baby, and then they say, here's your baby, and you don't know how to feed it, you don't know how to clothe it, you don't know how to protect it, you ain't even give it a name, you don't even know if you took somebody else's name from church. Come on, you get beat down if you use somebody else's baby name. I'm just saying, but that's how a lot of us are giving birth to our vision, our mission. Like that is just like, well, somebody else did it, so I just want to do it. Let me just tell you, I just thought that, being a mom, I was going to do stuff differently. I thought being a mom, I was going to do stuff differently. I had a dream and I had a vision, and I was like, okay, I know what mama did and I know what I'm not going to do. And, and I know how I was. I was very smart, and I was very easily able to just pick up some things, and very easy able to just start cleaning up people's houses and cleaning up their kitchens and cleaning up their bathrooms, and and very easily was able to just be a likable person. So I got a chance to start babysitting people. So guess what, y'all? I just thought that's how it was going to be for me. I was going to be able to birth that vision out, and then my son showed up. And he was nothing like me. He looked just like me, but he's more like his daddy. He looked just like me, but he's more like his daddy. And then he's also on the Asperger's. He's also on the spectrum. So I started crying, y'all, because the vision that I had about what we was going to do and how we was going to interact and how I was going to raise him up, it didn't show up the same way. It didn't show up. He's not he's a very friendly boy, but he's not one of those um boys who want to play basketball, and y'all, he gonna be about 6'5", 6'6". He ain't trying to even play no organized sports. But I'm finding out people on the spectrum, they don't really do all that. They by themselves. He already told me a couple years ago, I want to do programming, and I want to do music. He said that's what he wants to do, just like his daddy, right? He looked like me, but he wanted to be just like his daddy. He wanted to be to himself. And then he didn't get any play dates, and he wasn't being popular. And that vision that I had for him, you feel me? That vision that I had for him is not coming to fruition, because it's not about my vision for him. So I realized, because I just thought that because of my experience, I thought that mama didn't know. I thought that all of that we had gone through, I had this vision of how I was going to be a better mom, and I was going to live vicariously through my children. Guess what, y'all? That's not what I'm that's not what I was meant for. I'm not meant to live vicariously through my children. Eventually I've realized, especially when you're dealing with a child on the spectrum, and we talk about treatment plans, and then I'm always having to advocate for him, and saying, no, I want him to get a chance to live his vision. I want him to get a chance to be the best person that God created him to be. I want him to birth out his vision. I want him to birth out his dreams. I want him to tap into his holy brilliance so that he can be who God created him to be. That took a while. Even my girlfriend, who's also his godmom, she had to step in a couple of times because I wasn't getting it. It took me a long time, but for her, just think if I was trying to birth out my vision of being a mother without the coaches, without the teachers, without my husband, without the preachers, without my girlfriend who happens to be a nurse to help me to understand and appreciate that it's not about me. Then I had another experience. I had another experience with regards to the vision that I wanted to give birth to, and that was for another child. Now, I was having infertility issues, and I had sisters who were having babies at about the same time, and they could just roll out of bed, and boop, they was pregnant. And me, I was just like, well, I had a couple of things that was in my way, and obstacles, and I had to take some testing, and then I had some things removed, and then unfortunately I had an ectopic pregnancy, and then I had to take more stuff removed. And I was just like, but I see myself giving birth to another child. I even had his name. I was like, I know. I was like, so does this mean that I'm supposed to give birth to it? Or does this mean that I get a chance to adopt it? What does this look like? And what I realized is that then that's when I had to align with the divine. Because when you're giving birth to something, like I told my brother, it's not about what you want to do. I tried that. I tried to throw money at it. I figured I was a lawyer. I figured I can get the degrees. I figured I can do all that stuff. And guess what, y'all? Guess what? It didn't work out the way I thought it would. See, when you're giving birth to your vision, it's not always going to come out the way you think it is. When you give birth to a business, it's not, you're going to be like, my mama going to like it, my friends going to support it, my church is going to open up a forum. That ain't always going to happen. I promise you, it's not always going to happen. They be like, I'm going to make $5,000 the first month. That's not always going to happen. What I realize is that when you give birth to something, when you give birth and you don't know, you will have sudden infant, I was thinking sudden inspirational death, right? You'll have sudden inspirational death. And you got to watch that. You got to watch who you tell about being your pregnant, because when you're beginning, you're birthing out something inside of you. It's a spiritual birth. And some people have sudden inspirational death, because they tell their friend and they be like, oh, don't do that. Because I had some friends, I had to shut it down with regards to having to take the next step with regards to infertility and having to go and get IVF, because they was like, why would you need to do that? You already have a kid. Why would you need to do that? Because I had an experience. If I just had so many, one egg, one wafer, one, and I am raising that child up right now. He's almost 11 years old. Even the doctors, even the nurses, they was just like, hold up, what are you doing? You need to cancel this and you need to start over. But here's the thing is that I knew that I couldn't just start over. In my spirit, I couldn't start over. I actually had an experience like when right before they asked me the question, literally the day before, a friend of mine, Kevin, I call him Rev Kev, but Elder Kevin Campbell at my church, he preached about the Shunammite woman, and my ears had never heard about the Shunammite woman. I'm sure I heard about it because I grew up in church, but I was in church, but church wasn't in me. And, sometimes I just showed up and was doing other stuff, right? Hey, cousin. So what ended up happening was he had preached about the Shunammite woman. And because I had gone through the experience that I was going through, because I had gone through the experience of having to give birth to something that, everybody else said, it's already dead and you have sudden inspirational death. I know you want to do it, but, this ain't your vision. This ain't for you, this, you need to let it go. You already got a child. One child is enough. Some people advocate all you need is one, but that wasn't my vision. My vision was to have two. Now, I thought it was going to be a boy and a girl. But then when I realized that, guess what? It wasn't about me. Because every time I was talking about a girl, I kept getting bad news. But every time when I eventually said, God, it's not my will. It really is not my vision. Really, it's not your vision. It's just giving birth to the vision of God, what he put inside of you. He put this inside of you, and now you got to bring it forth. A lot of people are looking for the salvation, is looking for the Savior, and looking for someone to breathe on them and blow on them and say, "You doing a good job." And God told me to tell you, no, no, no. You got to know deep down on the inside of your spiritual self, that this is what I'm giving birth to right now. And y'all, for who just joined me, essentially this is give birth to your vision. Ultimately, this title is going to be called Give Birth to Your Vision. And we were just talking about how in the Bible they talk about who beget what. Somebody beget this, she got this, she got this, she got in Genesis. They always talk about the genealogy of it all. And then I was thinking about Labor Day, and Labor Day is labor pains, is what you have to give birth to. And it's a celebration of workers who are working on someone else's dream, someone else's vision, someone else's goal. We just get a chance to do just one cog. We're just one cog at the wheel of a big vision, big mission. And so I was also saying that there's a spiritual realm as well. Is that the same as we do in the natural, we must do in the spiritual. And in the spiritual, there's still a vision. There's a vision that we have to give birth to, that we have to make room for, that we have to nurture, that we have to protect, that we have to push through, right? Hey, Eric, I see you. I see you. We have to, hey, Rico, I see you. I see you. Hey, Cheryl, I see you. We have to push through. We have to push through no matter what. So what are you going to make room for? It's not about having Sunday turn to Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday, and then it's all over again. It's not 7 days a week turning into a month and turning into a year, and then it's another birthday. No, no, no. It's about what the vision, because if without a vision we perish, without a vision of bigger, better, more, without a vision above and beyond our realities, without a vision, who are we? Who are we but just rote? Who are we just workers? Who are we just widgets? Who are we just sheep? Right? We're just sheep being led astray, so that other people can have their way. But that's not who we are. We are vessels. Really, if you appreciate it, we're the vessels. We are the vessels who are supposed to birth out the change. See, I always believe that dreams are tantamount to the destiny. The dreams gives us glimpse. While I was sleeping, lying in green pastures, half asleep, half awake, I was having this conversation, and I was like, oh, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and ultimately it's like, no, I want you to talk about giving birth to something bigger to themselves, birthing out their brilliance, birthing out their book, birthing out their experience, birthing out a testimony. We are overcomers by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. So what are you giving birth to? That's why I was also thinking, hey, what do you begetting so that you begot? You got to get that deep down on the inside of you, knowing that it's not about you. It's not about you. I got friends. I got it. I got it. So I'm a charge $14,000 for a coaching program. I'm like, but what are you giving birth to? What change? What problem are you solving? What people are you serving? What are you giving birth to? It's not about making the money, y'all, because my God tells me my gifts, my gifts, my gifts will make room for me. And when you understand that you are gifted with the possibilities, you're gifted with the blessings, you're gifted with being the change. You are gifted because you beget. Like I think about if we was going through the conversations about, it's not that Toni begotten Mary and then had two boys. It's about Toni saying, you know what, right, Cheryl? It's like Toni saying, okay, when I was at the one law firm, all they was doing was telling me to do an insurance defense. And I realized that insurance defense was about helping people in the pews and people who look like me and talk like me. Well, I was supposed to shut them down. I was supposed to give them the bare minimum coverage. And I was supposed to look at the nuances of the contract and tell them that whether or not that they are eligible for the blessing of being covered. And eventually I was like, this ain't me. I didn't come from the projects just for me to just be doing this. I didn't come from the projects to tell people that look like me and talk like me what they can't have. I came for something else. I needed to give birth to the change that I wanted to see. It wasn't about getting paid good money at a law firm to push some papers, to go to court, to speak the language that they want me to speak. I was like, no, 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 this is not where I came from. This is not the dream. This is not the vision for my life, TJ, right? I see you. It's not the vision for my life. I needed to birth out the vision. So eventually I had to leave that. Even when I had worked with the judge, and she would tell me, okay, you're a clerk and you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. And I was like, okay, I see that. But I'm also a lawyer and I also feel like I need to be an advocate. And I also feel like I have words in my mouth and the meditations in my heart. They have to be accepted to my side. I'm just not a widget counter. I'm just not your law clerk. And here it got to the point where sometimes I would have some decisions because y'all, the law clerks are the ones who draft it up, pursuant to what the judge tells us to do. And we do the research and we draft up the first drafts and things of that nature. And then the judge eventually they look at it. But then there's some timing. They have like a couple of days. They get like 90 days, like 3 months to handle their business with the opinion. And then if there's an appeal, then there's timing. There's rules to this thing. There's levels to this thing, right? So I used to tell my judge, excuse me, you making me look bad because I have all these drafts on your desk and I have sent these via email and I need you to respond. And one time I heard her telling her friend, she was like, sometimes I wonder if Tony's the judge. And I was just like, no, I'm not trying to take over. I just know that people are going to look at the clerk. They're going to blame the clerk if you don't handle your business, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, because there's a timing to everything. It's a timing. And when people complain about the rules, I'm like, it's just the timing of it all, because it's not just about you, especially in the legal system. We got so many people who are filing complaints and so many people who are saying, I don't like this and I want you to reconsider it, or I don't like this and I'm appealing. And there's timings to this because, it's in, out, and then there's another group of people and all this stuff, but that's the legal side. So, I left her too. And then I met this one guy and I talk about him because that made me go to a different path. We're talking about, are you giving birth to the vision? What do you giving birth to? Right. And he was talking about how his wealthiest client, now this was a gentleman. I think he was of Jewish descent. He was an attorney and he was a CPA, but he worked at Price Waterhouse Coopers and he was a financial planner. He said his wealthiest client was an African American woman. And y'all, I'm an African American woman, who cleaned the Cheltenham Mall. There's no longer the Cheltenham Mall, but at the time that we were having a conversation back in 1998, 99, 2000, there was the Cheltenham Mall. And he was like, and previously, for years, she had cleaned the Cheltenham Mall. And she saved up her money. Now, I don't know if she cleaned the Cheltenham Mall as a woman who was a worker, or she cleaned the Cheltenham Mall because she had a vision that there's a lot of people who don't want to clean, and she had a vision and she birthed out a commercial cleaning services. All I know is that she wanted about $200,000 saved up as an endowment so that other girls who look like her, African American girls who wanted to go to college, they can have some money. So she had set aside all of this money for them to go to school. And she gave birth to that. How many of y'all talk about what y'all want to see and who y'all want to be and what you want to have more and do more and be more, but then you don't set aside the time to give birth to it, to give literally, like it takes about 9 months, 10 months to give birth to something. And then you can't just give birth to it out in the open space. You gotta prepare the room. You gotta prepare the people. You gotta prepare the tribe. You gotta prepare the provisions. You gotta nurture it. You gotta set some milestones and have some expectations. The same way we do in the natural, it's the same way you do in the spiritual. The same way you do on your job is the same way you do in your business, right? It's parallels because there's levels to this thing. It's commonality. So when I start talking to him, I said, I want to do that for my people. I want to do that for people who look like me and talk like me. I want to do that for people in the pews. It was something that resonated with me. Personal finance, it resonated with me. So I started doing that. I started giving birth to it. But y'all, I had sudden inspirational death. I had this baby. It had SIDS. It fizzled out within like a year and a half because I didn't know that everybody who needed it weren't open to it. Right? I didn't know that. So when I gave birth to it, then it had sudden inspirational death. It had SIDS. It didn't last for 2 years. almost like sits in the natural. Sometimes it doesn't last because we don't know how to take care of it, or there could be something wrong. There could be malfeasance within it. I didn't know that I couldn't just give it to everybody. Like even in your business, your dreams, your visions, you can't just give it to everybody because there's somebody who's just going to have their ear out and they're going to tell other people what you're doing. And then you'll have sudden inspirational death as well. So then I started another business. I started my law practice. I said, you know what? I know that people don't know the rules. They don't know the regulations. They don't know the legalities, governing realities. They don't know that when they're giving birth to a business, it's a spiritual thing, y'all. It's a spiritual, because you get a chance when you're birthing your business, you're birthing your brilliance, everything that you had hoped for and you dream for. You can't do it with your husband. You can't do it with your kids. I learned that. And if you old as me or a little younger than me in your 30s, you realize that you can't make people do what you have a vision for them to do, but you can do it. If you have a birth, if you have a vision for it, like when I was in the book, I was talking to my one sister, and she had ended up in the hospital because she ended up with a 9 millimeter bullet. Now I'm not sure if it was self-inflicted, as she said, or she was protecting someone, but unfortunately, she ended up with a 9 millimeter bullet inside of her. And we were talking in the hospital, and I was like, I see you talking to people, I see you inspiring people, I see you being better. You got to come out of this. You got to give birth to something bigger than our realities. There's people out there who need to hear your testimony, right? And I was telling her all this. Now, when I was talking to her and trying to empower her, I didn't realize that I was a doormat. I didn't realize that I was watching and waiting. I didn't realize that I was just doing what other people were doing. I didn't realize that I just thought that I needed to get in and fit in. I didn't realize that I needed to give birth to my brilliance. I didn't need permission to do what God commissioned to do. I didn't know that I had to speak to my fears. I didn't know I had to push through. I didn't know that what I beget is what I begot, based on how I become and based on my beliefs. Didn't know that. Didn't know that. Didn't realize that my beliefs matter. I didn't realize that my words matter, my thoughts matter. I just thought that you needed to do what they told us. You go to school, you get good grades, you get a good job, you get a good man, you live in a good neighborhood, you buy good cars and good clothes, and you go on good experience and you have good vacation. I didn't know that I was giving her something because I was talking to her soul, but I was telling her what I learned to do. But really, y'all, I was not happy. I wasn't happy when I was trying to uplift her and empower her. I wasn't happy. And then she eventually, about the same time that she leaves the hospital, is the same time I go into the hospital because I had an ectopic pregnancy and I almost died because I was trying to get to work. And thank God, thinking back now, I was trying to get to work, but I didn't realize that I was bleeding on the inside. So if I had gotten to work, then I don't know where I would have been. I don't know if I had would have made it all the way there because I was internally bleeding from a ruptured fallopian tube. I didn't know all of this stuff. All I know is that I missed the train. All I know is that I felt like my all my power was gone. And I knew I had a child. I knew I had a husband. I knew I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And so I have a good sister cousin girlfriend. I was able to call her up and she was able to take me to the hospital. I don't know what ever happened from there, right? I don't know what happened. But at that time, I was at the law firm. I was complaining. I was calling myself Kizzy, y'all. I was like, I'm picking cotton folders and files, and I'm just doing whatever master tell me to do. That's all I'm doing. I'm just doing whatever master tell me to do. If they tell me to go to the law firm, they tell me to argue this case, it tells me to put my professional degree certification on anything that they give me, I just do it because that's what they told me to do. That was before I ended up in the hospital. Then I realized, that, a couple months later, I realized that I almost died. And I realized that, the hospital didn't take care of all the stuff. They didn't give me the DNC. Charlene would know more about that because she's a nursologist, y'all. Shout out to the nursologist. And so I was just like, oh my God, oh my God. I don't want to die. I had to choose. Are you going to undergo this? I had to go through a couple of procedures and things of that nature because I had so much tissue, and if the tissue hadn't sat on there. But let me just tell y'all something. The reason why I talk about dreams and I talk about vision is because I didn't know that, after it literally was after. So in May, I get sick. And I get charged from the hospital. And then in June, I hear that, you know what, Tone, you got some some tissues that can become cancerous because, pregnancy tissues multiply, and they multiply because, the child needs it, right? But I didn't know that, and I didn't know it. And if you ever say, well, Toni, how did you get from that experience of being released to hearing that you have pregnancy tissue? Y'all, it was a dream. I can't even say that story without saying, Lord, I thank you. Lord, I thank you for the dream. Lord, I thank you for the dream, because the dream was that I had a boy and I had a girl, and she looked just like the boy. So I thought I had twins, y'all, because of that dream. So I was like, oh my God, I could possibly still be pregnant. And, I researched, I'm a lawyer. I ain't no lawyer because, I woke up like this, or maybe I did, but who knows? That's a different conversation about who we are and who we are meant to become and what we walk into. But I went to the Walmart, and I got all these pregnancy tests, and it said pregnant, pregnant, pregnant. I was like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. Then I did a research and was like, well, can I still be pregnant after ectopic pregnancy? Y'all, there's a lot of people who have ectopic pregnancies, but then they have babies who are also in the womb. And oftentimes they don't last because the doctors actually do a DNC. Well, in my experience, Pamela, I see you, they didn't do a DNC. They just cleaned out what they cleaned out, shut me up, and kept me moving, right? And so because of that dream, and because I looked up the research, I went back to the doctor's office and said, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. And they were like, no, you're not. I was like, yes, I am. And so because of the experiences, because of how I had came to them, I had begot a son. My first son was actually birthed. He was born. He wasn't born, but I consummated him 6 weeks after I had another ectopic. So I had experience. They had experience. They were like, well, this girl be getting pregnant all the time. Remember the begets and the begots to become, right? So she be getting pregnant all the time because I kept getting knocked up. But, I had a bad experience, right? So after 6 weeks of the first ectopic pregnancy, and they're dissolving that, and I don't know if they did a DNC, I get pregnant again, and that's how I have my son. So at about the same time I was going through this second ectopic scare, I had a 9-month-old, a 10-month-old. He was born in July, so by the time all of this started, where I had to choose, he was almost 1 year old. Now, prior to me beginning on that pathway of having ectopic and then having a birth, and then having another ectopic, the whole time I was still thinking that I needed to go to school, get a good job, get good people to like me and to give me permission. But then when I ended up in that situation where my sister ended up with the 9 millimeter, and I had a vision for her life. Now, I still wasn't understanding, appreciating that my vision for her life, it was really about my vision for my life. I did not know that, because all I know was that I was there empowering and inspiring. That's what I did from the very beginning, as long as I can remember. As my auntie said, Toni, you was always bossy. You was always telling people what to do, even as a child. So I was always telling people what to do. And, but that vision, I never had a vision for someone that clear. But when she left the hospital, I entered into the hospital, and then I was discharged. Then I had a dream, and then I ended up back in the hospital, y'all. So, but for that dream, but for that vision, I don't even know if I'd be talking to y'all right now. But for that dream, I don't even know that I would have thought that I was pregnant. I wouldn't have even got the doctors involved until it was too late, because the tissues was still multiplying. And, the nursologist can tell you all about the multiplication of the tissues and why it's needed. But that was my testimony. And so I had to go through 3 cycles of methotrexate. And the doctors was like, do not get pregnant. This is your third pregnancy. Please don't get pregnant. There's a lot of drugs inside of you. There could be a lot of after effects inside of you, all of that stuff. If you get yourself pregnant. See, there's a lot of people who want to get pregnant right here and right now, but you got to ask yourself, is this the right timing? Is this where I need to be? You are pregnant with possibilities, but do you give birth to it in the here and now? Do you want the sudden inspirational death, the SIDS, even if you give birth to it, if you don't know better, if you don't know how to raise it up, if you don't know how to nurture it and cultivate it, and then they was like, don't do that, because everything inside of you will infect what you're about to birth out, and I was just like, wow. But then I started to think about my life. I was like, I don't want to get here. I don't want to always be getting negativity. I don't want to always be getting the aftermath of society. I don't always want to be getting what the statistics say. I want to get something. I want to birth something out. And then that's when Holy Spirit was like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? So I got a chance to just think I got a chance to just think about what I was bringing about. What am I going to bring about? Am I going to ignore the doctors and get pregnant? Because I don't know about y'all, but when there is a loss, there is something psychologically. Whenever there is a loss, we want to replace it real quick, real fast, so we don't have to think about this stuff. We don't have to talk about it. I was mourning the death. I was mourning the possibilities. I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. All I knew is that I had a dream, and then the next thing I'm going through all these medical cycles, and then I'm still trying to cover up and trying to hide it. I'm still trying to be a partner at a place that they didn't even appreciate my brilliance. All they knew was that I always say yes to the stuff. So they got so used to me saying yes to it that guess what? They no longer respected me. They just got so used to me just being there. They go to court. Take care of this person. Handle your business. Do this, do that, do this pleadings, do whatever, make it happen, make it to the point where I felt like I was Kizzy, but I still wanted to be loved and appreciated by them. Until that experience, until I realized that, I started looking at methotrexate. I started looking at the fact that there's so many women, when their tubes burst, they die, y'all, they die. And I didn't want that for me. I didn't want to have to come out the projects. I didn't want that. I was like, I want to help people who look like me and talk like me. I want to help us so that we can live better. I wanted to live a better experience. I wanted to live a better place. I wanted to live my dreams. I had this vision. I needed to see the vision, y'all. 13 years later, to this day, I made a decision to step away from law for a bit, but not really, but I did. But I was no longer going to trial. I was no longer picking up cotton folders. I no longer was being pressed by billable hour society. I was no longer being hazed by the partners as to whether or not I wanted to be a partner. I wanted to give birth to what my vision of being a lawyer looked like, my vision of being a solopreneur looked like, my vision of being a boss, a woman of God looked like. And here's the thing, the vision that I had for my sister, who did not live, unfortunately, we funeralized her 2 days before I started a new job. It's crazy. You know, we funeralized her 2 days and before I started a new job. And during that process, while I was getting better, she was actually preparing to marry the guy who who was about 20 years older than her, and they wanted to get married and all this other stuff. And I was just like, this is her life. I had a vision for her, but this was her life. A lot of us have a vision. I remember, that song, I Had a Vision for Love, and it was Mariah Carey singing it. I used to sing that. I'm not going to embarrass myself because, I'm a songwriter, but I'm not a singer. But I was singing, I had a vision for love. I had a vision for love, and it was more than you given to me. I had a vision for our love. I had a vision for your life, and it was more than you given to me. And then the Holy Spirit was like, you had a vision for them. Now you need to start focus on the vision for you and you as well. See, as we're celebrating workers' Labor Day, because you're working so hard to make someone else's dream possible, you're working so hard to make someone else's dream come alive. You're working so hard so that you can just have a job and so that you can be known and appreciated. You're working so hard, even on social media. You're working so hard in your business. I want you to understand that you're birthing out your brilliance. I want you to appreciate that as you're walking, as you're talking, that you're birthing out a vision. But if you have no vision, it will perish. You got to have a vision for this thing. You got to have a vision so that you can be getting. See, God wants to bless you. He wants to keep you. He wants to help you to feel real good. He's got the Holy Spirit that will always lead you. When people are always behind your back, grace and mercy is already following you. But you got to walk into this thing. You got to give birth to this thing. You have to understand that, yes, there is a natural, but there's also a spiritual. You got to combine them together. Because you're both spiritual and natural. And you have to understand and appreciate that you got to give birth to this. That if you don't you have to give birth to it. And you have to be smart about who you give it to, who you share it with, who's going to be surrounding in your circles, whether or not they're going to affect change or they're going to infect your blessings. You have to understand and appreciate that it's about you. The genealogy is about you. The times and the trials and tribulations is about you. What you see is about you. Yes, people can tell you from their experiences. They can tell you, oh no, do this. Oh no. I actually had I was talking to someone in church, and someone in church butted into our conversation, was like, oh, you don't need Toni to help you with your business. I know somebody. He's not a lawyer, but he helped me. He's not, and I know somebody else. He's a business coach, but so all you got to do is go to LegalZoom. Well, yes, she went to LegalZoom, but her stuff is shady and it's not working. But she's too proud to come back. I'm like, girl, you ain't begging. You just was advised by the wrong person. You can't be advised if you birthing out your brilliance, if you stepping into your role of being a change maker, a difference maker, even a trailblazer. Then you have to understand and appreciate that you need good counsel. My Bible says always seek good counsel. My Bible says, look for the person with the gifts. That's why he's telling us, that there's gifted people to preach and teach and teach. There's people who are lawyers and bankers and accountants. There's people who love finance. And if that's not what you do, then you seek someone. You seek to see who can help you achieve that birth, that brilliance, that dream. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone, right, Pamela? We don't have to go alone. My God said he'll never leave me or forsake me because he's already got children who's going to help me. Now, it's not free, y'all. It's not free because here's the thing. Here's the question. If you a worker, you ain't going to work for somebody for free. So when you in business, why do you think somebody going to work for you for free? My daddy used to always say, you get what you pay for. So if you pay nothing, you get nothing. You're always going to have questions. There's always going to be an emptiness. But when you understand and appreciate that you could do better, you could do greater, you could do more. You just got to be still and know. I challenge you to be still and seek to see what your vision is. What it is it? What your vision for your life? Not your vision for your church, not your vision for your home, your house, not your vision for your husband, your spouse, your children, not your vision even for your job. It's your vision for where you are. Who are you blessing? Who are you helping? Who are you gifting? Who do you need to be a good steward of? Who did God assign you to? What is that purpose? What is that path, that purposeful path, that divine path that you need to go through, that you need to walk through, that you're walking through right now? Now you get a chance to choose you this day. Who's going to advise you? Choose you this day. What you're going to offer. Choose you this day. What brand are you going to rock? Choose you this day. Whether or not you're just going to be an employee that's going to keep your head down, or you're going to stand up and show up when they're asking for a team leader. See, even in my business, I'm a leader. And even at my job, I'm a leader. I'm a team leader. People come to me. Sometimes we have those moments where they be like, I need to fix my life moment. And we talk about those things because I just shared the birth. I just birthed out who I became. I became what I birthed out. I became what I birthed out. I became the vision that I birthed out. Every single thing that resonated with me. Oprah resonated with me. Ayanna resonated with me. You know, Suze Orman, it all resonated with me. And I realized that, it resonated with me because Suze Orman is just talking about sophisticated stuff and she's making it real simple. So she's a teacher in my head. Ayana, because I'm like, handle your business just like she like fix my life. Because I'm like, you can't fix other people's lives, but you can teach them how to handle their business. Right. And then with regards to Oprah, she resonated because she's a soulpreneur. She talked about the spirituality, the gateway. Now she talks about it from different facets because that's her masses, that's who she believes she's assigned to. But I turn around and I'll be like, but what about my bossed up women of God? What about the people in the pews? Because I'm a church girl. Now I ain't church and sanctified, but I'm definitely a church girl. I was raised into it. I was bred into it. I left it and then I came back and I said, no, 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 y'all traditionalists, y'all not going to keep God's overflow from the people. Y'all people who is always self-righteous people, no, no, no. I'm going to show up. I'm going to show you what the new thing look like when you show up and you become who God created you to be. And no, I don't wear a skirt every time. Yeah, sometimes I will have my faith beat because I have a program that I have to go to afterwards. But yes, and God loves me. And sometimes I will slip up and say, speak a foreign language that nobody else want to hear, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I know that God loves me and I understand that he appreciates me and I understand that he gifted me and I understand that I'm his masterpiece. You're the masterpiece, but you got to have the vision for your life. It's not about sheep. It's not about widgets. It's not always about getting in and fitting in. It's not always about just living a life because, somebody gave birth to you. No, God got you here some kind of way, as T.G. Jakes had reminded me years ago. I wasn't my teenage parents' problem. I wasn't their mistake. I'm God's masterpiece. He knew me. He saw me. He knew the hairs on me. He knew what he had gifted me. He knew the personality that I had. He knew the type of person that even when people shut me down, I've been shut down so long that you can't shut me down anymore. Because in my trials, my experiences, my brilliance, my vision for my life is that we snatch pieces of heaven here on earth. We speak about it. We bring about what we think about. We bring about what we talk about. We got to walk it like we talk it. That's the vision. That's the vision. That's the vision that I am birthing out. What are you birthing out? What are you giving birth to? What are you giving birth to? You're responsible for giving birth to something that will make change possible. You're responsible because, yes, we are God's masterpiece. We are the master's piece right here, right now, in every single move. If you think about chess, because we've been taught checkers, but if you think about chess, every single move you make, you can be the pawn, you can be the bishop, you could be the rook, you could be the kingsman, you could be the knight, you could be the queen and the king. Wherever he needs you to go, he will bless you. He will give you it. He will give you the whatever you need to make that move, to get to the next level, to overcome the obstacles, because we're more than overcomers. We are transformers who are making change possible by birthing out our vision, y'all. We got to birth the vision. We got to birth the vision. So this is Toni Moore of Boss Up Radio, and we'll talk real soon.